talk about
Yeah,
that
yeah,
later.
yeah.
But it's like I wanted to bring our voices here, so I set up a training program to make sure those spaces were getting diversified. And I also, every time I leave a company, I also bring someone new there that is a woman of color to carry that same voice there.
I think to piggyback off of that, that's a great point. Is like we sometimes don't always have the agency to immediately invite other women of color, people of color into those spaces. But what we can do when we don't have that agency is hold our counterparts like accountable. Like we need to be like, I can't be the only person in the room speaking up for Black, queer, trans, any causes that are minority facing. Like it has to be on everyone in that room, not just the only POC, not the only marginalized person to speak up when something is wrong. So I think something like I've had to do in every single space I've worked is have meetings with other heads of departments, other leads to be like, this agency is also on you as a leader in this company to not only think about who you're hiring, but to think about like what is being said in these spaces, how it's affecting everyone in that space, and making sure it's not just, me raising my voice all the time. Sorry, I touched my mic. But
Yeah, I totally agree with what they all said. For me, when I moved to New York is probably one of the most diverse places I've ever been to in my life. So it was kind of strange for me when I would go to events or to workplaces, and I would always be the only Black girl or the only person of color, and I'm like, that's so strange in a city like New York, and there's so many people of color who are creatives. How come I'm the only one of color in this space? And as I continued going to these events, I realized that the real issue is because there are no people of color behind the scenes. So agencies and companies, I feel like where the real root is, they have to start hiring people of color or Black people to be behind the scenes because they can be the advocates for the creatives that are being invited to these workspaces or events. And that can lead to companies also understanding us better. Because if I'm on a in a workplace or at an event and I'm the only person of color, I'm gonna feel like you don't understand me as a person because why am I the only one here? And I know there's so many people of color who are out here creating content just like me, better than me, and way harder than me. So I think the real issue is really going behind the scenes and hiring people of color.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, everybody on this panel already knows this, but being the first is great, but you can't just leave it there. I mean, that doesn't work. You have to bring people in. You have to make sure that you are giving people the platform and the space to feel represented and seen. Like, how are you about to just like go and have your career and like do what you do and just be like, okay, that's it. Just that doesn't work. That's not what anything is about. So just you know, yeah, you have to bring your people with you.
And Kai, we talked about this a little bit, but how important is mentorship? And I think you guys all touched on it a little bit, but how important is mentorship in your space and lending and giving a hand back to those coming up before you and like you mentoring other people?
I think it's extremely important. Growing up and starting out in my career at 19, I was definitely looking for mentorship. And the thing that I did find hard is that there wasn't anyone that really looked like me in the space that I could look up to and be like, oh, this is where I want to be. I want to be this person in a way. There was one person who did mentor me. His aunt really Tally, and he became a big supporter for me and someone that I always look to and support me. Um, Luckily, 3 months ago, I had the opportunity to have dinner with him, and I remember we were all like sitting at the table, and he like looked at me and pointed and was like, "What's your story?" And I told him my story, and he basically said that you are on the right track. You're doing exactly what you need to do, and you need to do this for us. And that was such a powerful moment for me and very inspirational. So I know that after him, like I have him to look. Sorry, I have him to look to, and then I know that I have to also be that person to be a face for others like myself, and just like build up our community in the industry.
So, talking about, I think we all touched on it, even though we're all here, we're all Black, we all have very different stories. And it's important that we know that not one size fits all when it comes to race, and we're not a monolithic community. So, Ari, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this. And recently on Instagram, you are part of the Proud Women's book, and you talked about how there aren't really any experiences showcased for Black, Fat, queer women. and that's really important to you. So I want you to expand on that and tell us why.
Yes. So growing up, I kind of felt like I came out like a year ago as a queer person. I'm fluid, bisexual. There's so many different terminologies for it. And that was just something that I personally didn't think was allowed. It's like, I'm already black, I'm fat, I'm dark-skinned, which comes into play a lot in media. And to have all of that already on me and trying to fight through those different identities, great. Now I'm like coming to the realization that I'm queer too. So it's just like, we're just kind of piling onto this Christmas tree of like oppression. And
Christmas tree of oppression.
So it was funny because
Someone tweet that now.
please.
Live tweet.
But as I was just kind of like sifting through all those identities, like, it's interesting. I actually was on the Tamron Hall show, and I was talking about being fluid to a demographic that didn't understand what that meant, and I was like, really, like in this day and age? So my best friend was in the audience, and this queer white man was behind him talking crap about me, saying, oh, it's great that there's a person of color, but like, did she have to be fat? Did she have to be plus size? And it was just like, dang, like the girls are fighting. Like my identities are like going nuts right now. And it's just like, I didn't know how to maneuver all those different like sectors because it was so, I'm used to more racism than I am fat phobia. So it was like, oh, we switching it up today. So things like having representation for being a fat black queer woman is so important because I didn't allow myself to have queer experiences or have any of those experiences because I didn't have that kind of visibility in media to tell me that that was okay. So it's great to have like people like rappers like Chika and Lizzo, like they're here now, but like I needed them 10, 20 years ago.
I feel like that we're all going to dive in because you guys all have created these beautiful platforms. And you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it comes from a place of like, you can't be what you can't see, right?
Yeah,
and Naomi, I know you created a podcast, so tell me where that came from, and what your inspiration was.
Definitely. I mean, it goes back to me growing up, right? I knew I wanted to work in fashion, but my family come from Haitian immigrants. All they knew was lawyer, doctor, and then lawyer again. Like, that's all you're going to be. My dad's like, what do you mean you're going to college for fashion? But yeah, I remember cutting out the Vogue masthead when I was in high school and putting it up on my inspiration board, but never actually believing that I was going to be able to have the resources to get there. And it was more so like a pipe dream, like, okay, I'm going to put this into the atmosphere, but God knows, like, is this ever going to happen? Because I didn't see anyone who looked like me in these positions. And that was just the truth. It wasn't until I got to college where the Rajni Jacques were coming out, the Nikki Oganakis, the Shiona Turinis were coming up to light, and I was like, wow, I could do this. But I was still very timid in the way that I was approaching the publication industry because I still felt that it was an industry that was very hard to infiltrate as a black woman and just as a black person in a whole. And so as I built my career and now I'm at Vogue and I was able to make that dream come true, I realized that I needed to give back to my community in a big way in a form that I didn't have when I was younger that I wish I did. And that's why I created So What Do You Do Again? And basically it highlights the careers and journeys of women of color in the fashion industry. And it's been an incredible journey because I've had young women and men come up to me and be like, wow, your platform has helped me get through my lowest points or has inspired me so much to go on and do this crazy dream that no one believes I could do. And that is all that is important to me because at the end of the day, I wish I had this platform when I was younger because it would have pushed me to work 10 times as harder. And who knows, I could have been in my position 3 years ago, and if I would have just believed in myself and seen other people who would have believed in me.
Wonderful.
Thank
I'm so
you.
happy you created it.
Thank you.
I needed it.
And I named it So What Do You Do Again because literally up until last year, my mother thought I was going door to door selling magazines. I kid you not. My mom was like, you need a jacket, like you must be so cold. I'm like, Mom, what are you talking about? So it's the constant ask of being like, what do you do? Like, what is this career? So yeah.
I told my family I work in advertising.
You're like, leave it at that.
That's it. Satchel, you have a new podcast. Can you tell us
do.
about it?
Yeah, it's called Release with Satchel Lee. It's like brand new, and I'm doing it in my bedroom. It has like 200 listens, but you guys should all listen to it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I've always been really, really excited by this idea of like sex, love, relationships, and romance. And I think part of it too, like to what you were saying, like as a young Black like queer woman, I didn't really like have much I didn't really get to see like myself reflected. I mean, I watched like all 6 seasons of the L Word like all the time, but beyond that, like not really much. And beyond queerness, just like this idea of the way that we love, the way that we connect, the way that we have thought about the tradition of marriage. Like, why do we do that? It's cool if you're into it, but like, let's think about it. I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of just what I've been doing, and it's really fun. And again, I think kind of what you were saying, like, I do not know how to make a podcast. Like, it sounds crazy. But I just really felt that I could sit in my room and kind of like perfect it and get it to this place where I feel like it's like, you know, immaculate. But if I try to do that, then I'll never put it out. So I just needed to really just kind of like let go of my insecurities, let go of my doubt, and just like get it out into the world. And it's been really nice because people have been super into it, which I'm glad that it's connecting in some way because it makes me excited, and so I'm happy to share it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nana, you have ESG,
Yes.
Every Stylish Girl.
Yes.
And when you go on the page, there's so many beautiful photos of women of all different complexions. So I wanted to ask you why you named it Every Stylish Girl versus Every Brown Girl, Every Black Girl, Ebony Part 2. Like, what was your inspiration?
So it was insane because when you sent me the question, you were like, why did you name it Every Stylish Girl versus Every Stylish Black Girl? And that was the original name of my company, was Every Stylish Black Girl, but I got a lot of ridicule for it because people are like, oh, so, you know, I'm Indian, can I not, you know, come to this platform? Or I'm from this background, can I not come to this platform? And I didn't want to ever have anyone feel like they were abandoned or they weren't heard.
Right.
Because I think just because you don't look like someone doesn't mean you don't share the same stories as someone, right? Or the same tragedies as someone, or their advice can't help you, vice versa.
Right.
So I took out the Black in it, but I mean, if you look at the page right now, it's a representation of who is on this panel, right? It's Black and brown women. And so it's like I still wanted people to feel connected to them at the end of the day, and not have the Black. You know, for some reason this scares a lot of people when you throw in the word Black in things. No, honestly, like even I'm trying to pitch to investors right now, and I can't even start my pitch off with saying, you know, I started this for Black women, because they're already feeling like they're pulled out of the scenario. Most investors are white males. And so you really have to allow people, you have to speak to people in a way where like they can feel a connection towards your company or towards your idea. So that's really why I took out the name Black in it. But the reason the company was founded was because when I had first started working in fashion magazines, I remember asking the question to HR, like, why is there no one who's Black or brown here, right? Because so many women, Black women love fashion. Y'all love fashion?
Yeah.
Period. Like, we love fashion. We love beauty. Growing up, like, my mom is Ghanaian, but, like, growing up in a Nigerian Ghanaian culture, like, fashion is first and foremost for us, right? Like, we're breaking barriers in there. And so I remember her being like, well, a lot of, you know, the Black women who submit, they either spelled something wrong or like they don't have enough experience. And I was like, oh, okay, that's the issue? Cool. Like I have, you know, a higher education degree. I'm gonna start a program and start teaching these women. So I have a 10-week training program for women of color to enter so they can build up their resume. So when they apply to the L's, the Harper's Bazaars, the Vogues, there is no excuse, right? Like they have this, they know how to report, they know how to write, they know how to take photographs, because that seems to be the issue, right? And so it's tough. It's really, really tough to work in a space that sincerely, like, doesn't really care. Like, doesn't really care for diversity as much as they play that up, right, for advertisement purposes or for sponsorship deals. Like, internally, like, they don't care. They don't care about our voices internally. So that was like kind of my biggest issue and why I created Every Stylish Girl, because I wanted to teach these women that it's okay to, you know, if you feel like there isn't a space for you, to create your own company. And that's one thing, like, I always try, and I'm so inspired by all these people here. It's because, like, don't feel like you need to morph and to fit into anything.
thing. Don't feel like if this company doesn't want to hire you, you're not powerful enough, your voice isn't strong enough. Like, build your own. You know, like, bring your people to your platform, establish your own companies, and be that voice for yourself.
I'm just gonna throw out a wild card. I hope you guys are cool with that. But when you say things like people don't care, they don't want to hear your voices, or you know, you walk up against these hurdles, how do you guys move past that? How do you make sure your voices are heard for other people?
A fight. I mean, like, and I talk to other, and I'm kind of bringing it back, but I talk to other Black founders, or I talk to other Black social editors, and it's the same struggle. It's like the people at the top, like,
We literally got lunch yesterday and like Kiki about our things that I'll just put an asterisk on that. But we literally were like,
yeah, because it's a real issue. Like, yes, we're in this space and they hired us and it's great. Like, we're that 1.5% of Black in their industry and they can put that on their numbers. But when it comes to like actually making a difference in the industry, like, it's a struggle for them to want to pull that plug and be like, let's write this story, or, you know, let's talk about this, because they're scared, right?
I think it's kind of like when you're experiencing those things. So what I did, for example, is in order for them to hear us, I make them come to me.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I started collaborating with other content creators, other people of color, Black people. We started creating our own content. We did it with our own budgets, with our own crews, our own photographers, our own videographers. And then we put our content out there. And then you hear all these brands knocking on your door, and then they're like, oh, you guys are creative. Oh, you guys know how to create stuff. It's like, yeah, we've always been here, but you just don't really care to see us. But when we create our own content and you see that it's amazing, then you're surprised and you wonder how we did this. But it's because we've always been here and we've always had these talents. So you kind of have to make them come to you. Yeah. Don't go knocking on their door if they don't want to hear you. They will come to you eventually, because you have to understand these brands need you more than you need them. And that's something that a lot of people tell you when you're doing what you're doing now. They need you more than you need them. As long as you keep creating your content, the right brands and the right agencies will come knocking on your door instead of the other way around.
What I've noticed a lot is, like, in cases like this, it's like when you're a Black creator or a creator of color, you often have to show your proof of concept first to show that it works, to show that this is going to work with, you know, your audience. But, you know, if you have any other kind of like creator doing it, it's just like, oh yeah, here's $30,000, go nuts.
I think internally speaking, like, you know, in spaces like at Paper and InStyle, at Paper specifically, I felt like I had to really actually fight for the agency I had and the ability to be like, this is my idea, I'm gonna go create it and like, see you, be back in a minute. But like, I remember specifically, we had a set of digital covers for summer, and I really wanted to do Megan Thee Stallion. And like, everyone was like, who? And I was like, who? And I was like, that's racist, first of all. I not even know who she is. Like, please, if anyone doesn't know who Megan Thee Stallion is in the room, Google. Yeah, Google. I was gonna say find me after, but don't do that to me. But
Wait, but put your headphones in, because I don't know if HR is gonna like that.
yeah, I know. Wait, careful. Tread lightly. But no, she's iconic. She's amazing, and she is someone who I was really, really pushing for, and no one was on my side about it. And so I had to be like, well, I'm gonna do it. And it became, we shot her as like Todoroki Tina. So like basically mixing anime with like Black hip hop culture, which is like the epitome of what viral internet-y things are. No one got it, no one to do it, so I did it pretty much like with the support of like 2 other team members of mine, and it became a viral moment. It became this huge thing, and all of a sudden, most of the staff was like, oh, we love Megan Thee Stallion. Like, ooh, we love Traffic. Like, yeah. So I think sometimes, like, you know, you won't always, the truth is you won't always have the agency to just say like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. But like, if you can, like, push to tell Black stories, like, push and fight to get these voices heard, to hire, you know, a whole Black staff, because I think also for Black talent, you don't realize how nice it is to see other brown faces in the room. It like immediately shifts the mood. It changes so much, and to be seen in that way is really important. So I think, like, off of your point, like, if you also, sorry, I'm screaming at you going to HR being like, where are the Black people? Show me one Black person. But because it's like that a lot of the times, you know, you really have to, like, if you have the energy and ability to push and fight, you should. You can.
We're going to switch gears a little bit. Aisha, we've worked together a few years ago, and I've watched your platform like skyrocket. First of all, I just want to shout her out. I worked with Aisha when she was a micro influencer, and her engagement rate was 10%. It was insane. When I put her on the roster, she blew everyone out of the water because no one had a 10% engagement rate. It's crazy. And I noticed over the years, so when we worked together, your Instagram name was African Melanin.
Correct.
And now it's your full name. So what made you switch, and have you noticed the way brands approach you since the switch?
So I think this is actually a really great question that not a lot of people talk about. There's so much power in a name. When you walk into a room, the first thing you do is, hi, my name is Aisha. Introduce yourself, because that's like the first piece of personal information that you are willing to share with people for free. And I remember one time, I think I was at another panel or an event, and someone said to me, you kind of operate as a media company on your own. And that's when I kind of like made a switch in my mind, and I was like, oh, I never looked at myself as a media company or as a brand per se. And I realized that it's really important for people to know who is this person behind this media company. And another factor that made me change my name is whenever I get job opportunities or magazines want to feature me, they always feature your ad name, which at the time was African Melanin. And I'm like, these people actually don't really know what my name is. Even though it's like in big letters on my bio, people don't seem to read past the ad name. So even people like approach you in person and they say your Instagram name. I mean, I'm guilty of it. When I see people, I say their Instagram name because I don't remember their real name. So I realized that I need people to know who I am as a person, and that starts with my real name. So I made the switch when I was about to hit 100K because I felt like that was a monumental moment for me. And I made the switch to Aisha So, which is my name. And I realized that even now when I get briefs from clients, they put your name in first, which is Aisha So, and that never used to be the case. And it just made me so aware of I'm finally branding myself as myself in the media world. And I think it's really important if you want to take that next step in your career that you make yourself heard by saying your name first. And that's why I made that switch of changing from what it was before to what it is now.
Peyton, you have some exciting news. You recently...
Maybe.
Well, you had a job change, which is exciting. Yeah. You went from Paper Magazine to InStyle. So tell us a little bit about that transition, if there was a major transition.
Yeah, absolutely it was. Okay. I actually really quickly want to say, I wouldn't call myself an influencer at all, but I did switch my Instagram handle from photo.slut, sorry if that does something to the live stream, teenagers, turn it off, to my name, Peyton Dix. And very similarly, I was like, as much as I loved photo.slut, as much as I heard like, oh my God, are you photo slut? I was like, yes, call me by my name, thank you. I also knew that I wasn't being taken seriously in certain spaces because of that. And also to your point, because of age, I feel like just having that handle made me seem, you know, I'm 25 years old, like made me seem maybe immature or maybe just like not like the professional woman that I am and was. So that was a sad moment in my life, but also now you know who I am. But speaking to the switch from paper to InStyle was definitely a hard one. Not only like was paper like my family, so leaving in general was really difficult to do. I think going from creating a voice at paper that was so specifically queer and POC centered and felt very innate to paper, because paper was a company that started, you know, in New York, always uplifted marginalized voices. It was a company that was rooted in all the politics I believed in. So adding my voice to it, adding my queerness, my blackness, was something that was an easy switch. And it was something actually, even at paper, they held off on doing before. I remember like when I started switching into like meme culture and using like more of like my language, it was like a moment, it was a meeting we had, you know? And then I had to prove that like this works, and we saw engagement increase by 300%. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yes, I will flex right now, I will. And so like the higher ups had no choice but to be like, she made some points, you know? Like this is something that not only works for us, but is reflective of the people that work there. Like you said, a paper is like, a queer space, it's like a black space, it's a space that, you know, not only obviously black people work there, because it doesn't identify as a queer publication or, you know, a POC publication, but its politics are rooted in that. Where in style, that's not the case, frankly. It's not surprising, but knowing that I might be able to bring more access to the people of color or queer people that follow in style or bring in those audiences was important to me. That's a huge, huge, you know, publication. It's a huge platform. And to be able to make that switch, even for myself, was a huge deal, you know? Like, at first I was so nervous. I was like, how am I gonna bring this paper voice, my voice, to InStyle, which is like the polar opposite publication? And again, already have increased engagement by 200% and traffic from Instagram by 800%. So it works, clearly. Like, our voices are so important, and they literally are what creates, like, black people are creating content, period. The things you're seeing, the trends you're seeing, the words you're using come from black creators, mostly black queer femmes, if we're being very specific. And I feel like more people need to be reminded of that, and that's why it's so important to have those people in this room. You know, like, we need to make sure, we need to look at this room right now, and I encourage everyone to actually do that, and see who are the faces you're seeing. Who are you not seeing? You should be thinking about that every day, especially the white people. You know, we have to think about it all the time. We walk into a room and immediately know we're the first black person in the room. And that's not on us anymore. You know, that's on white people to be accountable, to bring in people of color, to bring in queer people, to bring in fat people, to bring in people who are not your experience. And so I just want to leave that note.
I don't know. Should we all leave? Like,
Right.
Wow.
Anyway, this has been great. Yeah.
We do have some time for questions from the audience if anyone has some burning desires. Patrick.
My name's Patrick. I'm curious, a lot of you work for sort of the big legacy media brands like Vogue, New York, The Cut, and so forth, and you also have your own platforms. I'm kind of curious how you think about how much energy to devote to, say, Vogue versus your own platforms, like how much energy to put towards that, and also how you protect what you've built. Like, you know, if you have a really successful project for paper, like this cover that, oh my God, yeah, we thought it was going to work from the beginning, you know, and then...
You saw me.
Yeah, right. But, like, how do you then make sure people remember where that came from and make sure you're protecting what you've built and getting the credit for it?
I think it's a constant for me. I can only speak from my experience. I created So What Do You Do Again last year around April. And with the precursor of not knowing exactly how much energy I was actually going to have to put into it. It's a passion project of mine that has now turned into something way bigger than me. And I have a very demanding full-time job that sometimes I get lost in. Okay, I'm working 9 to 5, but I have to record an episode right after this, and then have to edit one that needs to go up on Sunday. And what I've learned is that this is my passion project and that everything runs on my time, and to stop worrying about what everyone else is expecting from me, because that's where you get lost into it, and that's when it starts to become work. And yeah, this is a project of mine that it's my baby, and I love it so much and dearly that I want to put all my time into it. But right now I don't have those resources, and it's just me. I don't have interns. I don't have like a video guy or a sound guy helping me. I like lug all my equipment to someone's house, or they come to mine and we record, and then I edit and do all the other logistical work for it. So yeah, it's a learning experience. It's a learning curve. I'm in it right now. I'm constantly tired. I've finally taken back my weekends. I'm trying to be more about self-care and making sure that I'm not making it back into my 9 to 5, but it needs to be a resource for fun and happiness, and that's what I want it to be. I hope that answers.
And also, I think interestingly enough, I was actually hired at The Cut because of my company. So I don't have any professional social media background. I'm a journalist, went to grad school for journalism, but just had created a social media company that blew up really well, like by myself. It grew 30K in less than 2 years, just me. And so I think bringing that to the cut. I had met with the editor-in-chief, and she was like, can you bring this community here? Oftentimes, like, you'll be surprised. They want you to bring that community there, and they want to hear the voices from your other companies. And oftentimes, when you actually have two jobs, it makes you wiser when you're doing your main job, too, because you're learning a lot from each side. So luckily, like, New York Magazine encourages people to have side hustles or to freelance for other publications, which a lot of companies don't and they frown on. But I think it's important for that person to have a brand, because at the end of the day, when that person has a brand, it can only do better for that company and bring traffic back to that company and new eyes and new voices, right? Like Peyton going to InStyle, like she has her own brand and she carries that to InStyle, and so she's bringing that queer, that POC community there, right? And then people have more of a different respect for InStyle, right? Or they didn't know that they could hire someone like that there. So I think oftentimes it can actually work to our benefit, but you just have to prioritize, once again, like who's paying your bills, okay, the cut, and make sure like that's a priority at the end of the day. And I'm tweeting more or posting more on the cut than, you know, I am for every stylist girl. But, yeah.
Any other questions? Everyone's shy?
Hey, I'm Jen McTighe, and I'm just curious what you think about, I know a few of you have podcasts, and I'm curious what you think that means for the people of color, Black community, when it's just a voice, and how you can use that as a special platform.
I love podcasts. I don't think we listen to each other's voices enough. It's such a just such a powerful, beautiful thing to sit and have somebody just speaking into your head. You know, you kind of get all of these emotions that maybe you don't get because we're on our phones all the time, but you know, we're talking to someone, we're all kind of all over the place. But when you sit down and kind of center yourself and just allow yourself to take in somebody else and really hear what they're saying, I think it's a beautiful thing. So I'm all for it. Yeah, and again, you know, whoever's speaking as a person of color, as a queer person, just to be able to tell your story in your own voice is a really important thing that I mean, everybody should have a podcast. Why not? It's this day and age. You can tell your own story and really get it out into the world and kind of take up your space. So it's great. I love it.
For me, one of the main reasons why I created it is to make sure that people had access to these figures in the fashion industry, or people or mentors that they wish they had, or wish they could, or were too shy to go up to them in these spaces that they may be at, and to have access to them, because that's the one thing I grew up not having was access, and also having the advice from older women or just women who were my peers that just had a little bit more experience than me. So I think that's the beauty in it, because podcasts can bring so much to your community with you not even knowing it. You're listening to someone's journey, and it can make such an impact in your own life, and it can completely have a 360 moment for you.
John Paul, did you have a question?
Yes, I'm John Paul.
Hi.
Hey, when brands approach you to collaborate, what's your pet peeve, and what should you be doing differently? What's your advice? I don't think you got some thoughts.
Not having a budget. Truly.
Wait, we didn't answer
Oh,
that.
wait, we didn't answer that yet. Sorry.
Bring this one and we'll.
Well, go ahead.
I'll say something.
Wow, a lot of pet
I
peeves.
think when a brand approaches me specifically, I want them to come to me actually wanting to work with me, not just working because they want to meet the quota or meet the statistic of having a Black person, or they need a male. I want them because they want who I am as a person, my audience. I recently just started working with Chanel Beauty, which has been an amazing partnership. And actually, when I met with the head of PR, I actually went out, she took me out to dinner, we sat down, we talked. She was genuinely interested in my life and people who follow me. So I think that's really important.
When brands limit your creative ability, they kind of reach out to us because they like what we do on our page and our platform, but then they have 1,000,001 rules on how they want you to create the content and how they want you to present it to your audience. And it's it's my audience, and I know what they like, and I know how they're gonna engage with it. So it's kind of difficult if you reach out to a creator and then you tell them, micromanage them
on every little thing on how you want the content. I feel like they should, if you reach out to someone, you should trust them well enough to know that this is what they're going to create for you and that that is what you want the outcome to be. That's been a huge pet peeve for me. And then obviously having no budget.
Is there, can I ask a follow-up on the budget?
Yeah, of course.
Is there a sense that you're getting less money?
Absolutely, always. Yeah, this is something I think we all discuss. I think,
But talk about it.
yeah, and we all, I feel like we know. I mean, obviously brands are not going to tell you, hey, you're getting less money than her, but we know as Black creators, people of color, we get way less money than our white creators, fellow white creators.
Do you guys ask white creators?
I don't, but I just know. It's just a thing. It's like the workspace here probably, I'm not sure, but you just know when someone else is getting more than what you're getting, and I feel like we just have to put in more work to receive even just a fraction of what they're getting, or we have to prove ourselves a little bit more to be accepted, to get a raise or to get a bigger budget. Obviously, it's not fair, but you know, it's a fight. It's a constant fight, and that's why we also pick and choose which brands we work for. If I feel like you're not the brand, you're not giving me what I'm worth, then I'm not giving you the content that you deserve or that you feel like you should get. And I think I've been talking to, so every Style Show, we feature a lot of influencers. I actually featured her too when you were at like 20K or 30K.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing is to remember, like, there is so few Black influencers who are really killing it at the numbers that they want, so pay them for that extra, right? Like, don't pay them the same rate because there's 1,000 other white influencers that you're getting. Pay them more because you're only picking like 3 or 2 Black women anyway for your campaign. So I think like that's the most important thing right there. And I think also like it works same way corporate. Like so many of my coworkers are getting paid less than, but we're supposed to be a voice for all of our community. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like we're speaking for hundreds of other thousands of Black women that you're not hiring to be in these spaces, and you want us to represent for all of them, but you're not paying us equal to our white coworkers, right, our counterparts. So I think it's so important to remember like what we're carrying and all the weight that we're carrying and what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to be the voice for this publication and carry it all the way to the traffic at the top. But the pay is not the reflection of that, right? So I think it's so important to remember, like you have to pay more for the person that's doing more.
I also will say really quickly that even like not just follower count, but engagement rate, which most Black creators have really high engagement rates. And also I think transparency in general is a thing that a lot more people are talking about.
Yeah.
Like people are now asking each other more. Like we're kind of in a stage where we're like, whatever, tell me how much you're making. Like I need to know so we can compare apples to apples and see like what's the tea, you know? I think that's in general a thing a lot of young people are prioritizing because a lot of us creators are like, no. Like, we're past that. It's 2020. Like, we're getting our check. We're getting it on time. And, like, in a rate that makes sense for us.
Yeah.
On
I think
time.
Right. The outstanding invoices are.
Yes, they're up there.
Not a net
Speaking
45.
volumes.
A net
I was gonna
60.
say, like, the call-out culture is so important. Like, you're seeing it on Twitter, you're seeing it on Instagram, and I think, like, this is the time, like, before, like, we were so modest and we were nervous to speak up because we thought that check would be removed from our hand, but now it's like, call these brands out, call these people out, like, say what you want and make it clear, but also have, like, information to back it up, right? I think that's the most important part too as well. Like speak to your numbers, speak to what you've made, the content you've created, because I think they'll help.
I think we had a question in the back.
Questions and I can't pick, and some comments. But anyway, I just want to say you're an amazing panel, and I really celebrate that so many of you've created your own platforms and you're straddling the corporate as well and all of that. And it's amazing. And it hurts my heart, having been in communications for so long, to hear some of you say you didn't feel like you had any mentors and all of that. And I just want to apologize for my generation saying we didn't do our job well enough, if you feel that way. And I run an organization that focuses on diversity and inclusion and mentorship and all of that. And, you know, keep talking and being vocal. And the question I have, there's one. I chose one. The question is, do you get asked to speak on panels that are not specifically about people of color creating content? Because your voices need to be more widely heard.
I would would say yes.
Yeah.
We speak on a lot of social media panels, but also a lot of like entrepreneurial panels too, which is so great because Black people have the #1 buying power right now. So it's wonderful to like, go to business conferences and be able to speak on those too, in media conferences.
And I'll be hitting all of you up to do some panels for us.
Yes. What was the name of your company?
Oh yeah.
My company is Human Impact Solutions that I'm a principal of, but the nonprofit I run is the Black Public Relations Society of New York.
Amazing.
Oh,
And
Congratulations.
here's one of our board members.
Oh, thank you.
Great. I think we have time for 2 more questions, Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I was curious where you guys see the future of content creation going. Like, what does Instagram look like 5 years from now? Just thinking that podcasts 5 years ago were kind of just becoming a thing. In the last year, we've seen TikTok blow up for young people.
And
so
mothers.
Yeah.
Mothers are amazing on TikTok,
Yes,
just by the way.
right? I can't dance like that. But yeah, just what does Instagram look like 5 years from now in terms of brand partnerships? Do you see any other emerging platforms that might be important in the future?
I feel personally like, and part of the difficulty of working in social media is that social media changes every single day. So you have to like update your skill set once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. It's so, once TikTok came out, everyone's like, why are we not on TikTok? And I was like, you don't even know what TikTok is. Like, but, I feel excited in general about the way we're creating. Like, I think there's a easy way to dismiss, like, TikTok. But I think it's such a creative platform. You have to have a lot of time to be able to, like, create some of the storylines that are going on there that I wish I could unpack. Like, and I think there's no way to really predict, and we shouldn't have to in a way. Like, I think there's a rush to be the first, and when really, like, we actually should be more intentional. Like, if we're on TikTok, like, what's our purpose there? Like, how are we contributing to the space? Speaking from, like, a brand perspective. But I think in terms of, like, marketing, TikTok, there's no, like, link out possibility. So a lot of publications are like, when we're on it, like, what are we doing on? Like, we're not getting traffic from it technically. So it's really just, like, more about branding or, like, tapping into, like, a younger generation. And that works for some people and it absolutely does not work for other people. But I think it's gonna, I think it'll evolve absolutely because that's what happens. But, honestly, I miss MySpace a little bit, but the golden years. But I don't think there's a way, I don't think there's a way to monitor it. And I think it's actually more about, like, let's see what comes and let's be intentional when we do enter those spaces and, like, what that looks like. And I hope, like, I don't know if you follow, but Rosa on TikTok, whose real name is Adam. Rosa's amazing. You're like, who the hell is she talking about? But, like, I hope that the real creator, Rosa as a personality, like, Adam, markets the shit out of that because, like, he's a young person of color who's definitely gay. And, like, like, I want to see more people, more brown people, more queer people, more young people utilizing their power on these platforms to not, like, sell out, but to, like, collect their checks and, like, get credit where it's due. So I think, I don't know, I'm kind of on a tangent here, but I feel like we don't need to, like, hyper monitor those spaces. We just need to, like, see what happens and then contribute to them intentionally.
But just to add to, like, what you're saying, like, also think about, like, utilizing those Black creators who are on TikTok and Instagram because the generation coming up, they're not as much interested in celebrities anymore, but they're more interested in their favorite YouTuber or the newest TikTok star. And that's who you want to elevate and uplift because that's all the future is. That's all they're going to care about.
Yeah. We have time for one more question. Make it a good one. No pressure. Lily's coming with the mic.
Hi, y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom and words. So as you're talking about with social media and all this engagement, obviously with positive engagement and lots of likes comes a lot of negative engagement. So how do you, I guess, deal with that racism on social media and sort of the intersectionality for the queer panel members? How do you deal with, like, queer phobia on social media?
Deleting comments is like my favorite pastime. So that's how I usually deal with that. But also, like, if you're coming with me, like, just to be informed, that's one thing. But if you're just like spewing out blatant hate, like, bye.
I think it's so different when you work for a company and you can't delete comments. Like working for The Cut, they never had a voicey person or a black person run their social. So it was really nerve-wracking. I mean, like I had posted something. I remember we do throwback photos, but people love nostalgia. And I posted something of Venus and Serena, and they had cornrows in their hair. And I was like, who remembers like this throwback? We all used to do beads and braids in our hair. I got so much backlash that a lady emailed the editor-in-chief and was like, white women should not speak about hairstyles black women used to have. You guys should not be opinionated about this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait. I'm black. I run this account now. But they're so used to like not having black people in these spaces and not running these platforms that like she couldn't even bear to understand that it was me. So it's showing your face more. Like I think that definitely helps. Like I do a lot of takeovers. I interview celebrities on the red carpet. Like I'm constantly letting the Cut audience know who runs this account. And I think it's like, and it works well as far as engagement because being voicier, people feel like it's not a brand talking to them, it's a person. So that's something that we're playing with at the Cut a lot, and like I'm showing a lot of personality. So we've seen that really strike up our engagement too as well.
I also say I have the experience, obviously having spoke to the shift from going from like paper to InStyle, where paper, the voice was like an easy shift, and then InStyle was definitely a tougher one. Recently, we had posted about Dwayne Wade's daughter and how wonderful it was to see that support from a parent, especially a black family, to be honest. And I think that was so important for me to post, but there was fear from like my counterparts of like, no, like our audience won't, like, they don't understand trans things. And I was like, okay, well, grow up. Like, we're gonna understand it. It's 2020. So I posted it, and there was previously a behavior of deleting comments, which I'm absolutely against when it comes to being a publication. Personal account, swipe, delete, bye. But for publications, I was like, no, we need to hold our audience accountable. We need to know these are the people that are following, engaging, and half the comments were, yes, totally transphobic, so ignorant, but we were able to use our agency and our voice to respond to those comments and be like, actually, like, daughter, like, she identifies with she, her pronouns, like, thank you. And then that comment got 4,000 likes, just a comment back. And then we saw people inspired by our response to then have more conversation and more dialogue on that one post that ended up blowing up for us, where people thought like, one, it wouldn't perform, and two, it would be like too much. And I was just like, you know, let's get over that, you know, because if we're not taking the space to have these conversations and like have this dialogue, because a lot of people, like a lot of people aren't gonna get it, but like we have the room to help them understand it. So that was something that's really important to me, to be like, we're gonna talk about these things. We're going to talk about it loud, so get ready.
That's why your engagements are so high. What were your numbers again? What were your numbers again? Quick flex.
Oh, yeah, so it's been 2 months since I've been there. 200% increase in engagement, 800% increase in traffic from Instagram.
Yes.
Everyone else should flex too. I feel like this is the time now to be like, listen, you can book us because we're available and we're talented.
You guys can flex if you wanted. Okay. We are gonna wrap up. Dale, our CEO, is gonna say a few words before we close out.
I'm actually speechless, and for those who know me, you know that's not often. I have to put this on camera, because actually, so before I even talk to all of you, because I have a lot to say for a second, I want to first thank our team for inviting these amazingly talented, bright, brave, inspiring. There is an open invitation for our workplace and anything you want to do, and we will pay fairly. Do everything you want. I'm also looking for advisors to help us bring our agency forward, because we are damn committed to it, and it's the only way we can be the best we can be, and we need to have these kind of conversations and to hear more from people like all of you. I mean, how lucky are your colleagues and the people you collaborate with every day? I mean, I'm just like, I'm so moved. I can't even tell you how moved. We talk about culture ad, guys. Was this not an hour of amazing culture ad? And I hope for our staff, I hope you've taken as many notes as I have, or just sort of taken it all in, because they're really words of wisdom, how we can continue on our journey, which is such an important journey for all of us, right? It is why we want to be here and do what we do in a place where we thrive and grow. And we can only do that when we have a place that's fully inclusive and fully creative, and you only get that way when you open doors for everyone. So I didn't really prepare anything. John Paul said, "Oh, you're going to get up at the end." So, but honestly, even if I did prepare anything, I probably would never have the words to really say thank you, and to thank you for how much you've moved us today. And Naya, you did a great job. I said Naya was like blotting her forehead beforehand, and you know, she's obviously never been a woman of my age, so when I blot my forehead, I'm just sweating, right? But she says, "Oh, I'm not sweating, I'm just got too much makeup, I'm shiny." So I was like, "You go, because you are so cool and terrific, and thank you." And again, to our team, thank you. I know how much work you put into this, and I hope everyone here and everyone who's going to watch this online is going to get as much out of it as I hope each of you got out of it today, right? Maybe a standing ovation for everyone here.
Yes. Thank you. That's so sweet. Yeah. Oh, God. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank all of you guys. I want to come here every day.
Well, and you know what? I just leave you with this. Like, you know, I personally, I know it's important, but I don't see color. I see talent. And I see amazing people do amazing things in the world. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you so, so, so much for everyone who took the time out of the day, especially these incredible panelists who are so busy all the time. One more round of applause for all of you guys. Thank you. And last but not least, a quick plug for our Diversity and Inclusion Committee. We are meeting Monday at 2 p.m. to kind of debrief this incredible experience, as well as start and continue to plan for 2020. So again, thank you all so much for taking the time to come out today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.